Few things are for sure in this life, but this is. If we live for any substantial amount of time, we will encounter grief due to the loss of a loved one. Not something any of us ever want, and we all handle it differently. This podcast is to feature those who have done purposeful and meaningful things through their grief. These people featured on here are normal folks, just like you and me, who were thrust into a place they never wanted to be in their lives. A painful place. As they move through their pain, they realize that something worthwhile, something for the greater good could come out of the unthinkable. I'm sure that none of them would ever consider themselves to be a hero, but when I searched the definition of the word hero, I found this: a person who is admired or idolized for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. And that fit. And so it's my privilege to bring you the remarkable stories of these heroes in grief. Hi, everyone. This is Tom, your host for the Heroes in Grief podcast. And the response has been incredible so far, and I want to thank you for that. It's getting out to people, and they're letting us know that it's helping them. And that is what it's all about. I want to make you aware of a way that you can support this podcast without having to spend 1 cent, and that is through affiliate marketing. I've set up affiliate marketing for online shopping. If you do online shopping, then I have links to all the major retailers, most of them anyways, and I can provide them for you so that when you buy online through those links, you'll help support the podcast through the percentages that we get. It doesn't cost you anything more. You just shop like you regularly would on the sites that you love. It's very easy. All you have to do is shop. And that's it. Just let me know the links to the places that you want to shop at, and I will provide the affiliate links so that you can do it. If you want more information on this, you can go to heroesingrief.com. It takes you to the Linktree page where a video explains it in a little more detail. But you can always email me at tom@heroesingrief.com, and I can answer questions for you. But you can support the podcast that way, and it's very easy, very simple, and it doesn't cost you a cent. Isn't that great? Thank you. Now here's today's episode. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Heroes in Grief podcast. Good to have you with us today. And today we have Karen Sibal, and she is a functional medicine certified health coach, a grief coach, author, and mindset expert from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, which is right across the border from where I am. I'm in Niagara Falls, but that's about an hour and a half or so up. But she's about 45 minutes from our border. So we're neighbors, basically. And she helps people at midlife, transform losses into lifelong gains. So we're going to get into how that all takes place. And first of all, I want to welcome you, Karen. Welcome to the Heroes in Grief podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. It's my pleasure to be here.
Good to have you. We met on LinkedIn just recently, and so I do a lot of networking on there and connecting with people so we can all get connected and help the grief community. So it's been nice. I'm glad you sent me the information you did to get things rolling here with all of this, and thank you for coming on at short-term notice here. For those of you who don't know, been trying to scurry to get the podcast in every week because we're kind of going through a family event right now with my fiance Judy's son. He's 23 years old, and he had a major brain bleed, which is caused by an AVM, which is an arterial venous malformation. But he's doing much better. He's been in for about 2.5 months now, and he's in rehab and getting better. So we would covet any positive vibes or prayers that you want to send our way. So we appreciate that. But we've been managing to get this in. Judy's been gracious about allowing me to do it too. So that's all good. Mm-hmm. But let's get to Karen here. And Karen has a lot going on. And first of all, I want to mention her website, which is KarenSibal.com. And Sibal is spelled S-I-B-A-L, KarenSibal.com. So that's how you can find her. And we're going to get into all the wonderful things that are on there. Karen, we start off with the story behind why you're doing what you're doing now, pretty much. And so that involves grief for you and some other things too. So why don't you share that with us and our listeners and tell us all about that?
Well, Tom, thank you so much for the opportunity to share my story. And before we get started, I'm sending a ton of positive vibes your way for the crisis that your stepson and all of you are going through. I'm sure it's absolutely nerve-wracking. So I am sending all kinds of positive vibes your way. You will be in my thoughts. I would be honored to share my story. I've actually been working with older adults for over 15 years, not just in Toronto, but across Canada and even a little bit in the US. I used to be in family counseling, helping older adults with domestic issues, domestic abuse, elder abuse, those types of issues, and helping them navigate the systems. One of the things that I worked with a lot with older adults was them dealing with the death of a partner and then trying to navigate the system after, and then dealing with the fallout from relationships. So that gave me a bit of a background and a prep to deal with what was coming my way in 2020 when COVID hit, and then we had all the pandemic measures that were rolled out. I ended up losing 6 family members in the span of 4 years.
Oh my gosh.
I lost my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, 2 uncles, a cousin's husband. Then my father passed away a few months ago. And now on his heels, my mother is nearing the end of her life. She got diagnosed with a terminal illness immediately after my father passed away.
Mm.
She was his primary caregiver, and she got burnt out with the caregiving experience. And of course, being a proud woman, she wouldn't accept help from anybody, and she had to do it all herself. So she's paid the consequences for that because her kidneys are functioning at less than 5% right now. I've had to deal with not just the passing away of family members, but with my mother, and now having to be her caregiver. That took a toll on my health, and it took a toll on our family relationships. In a nutshell, my family of origin sort of fell apart overnight. And so there were multiple levels of grief that I was dealing with. And interestingly enough, as I was trying to grieve and then deal with the practical matters of my mother and taking care of her, having this diagnosis put upon us, while we were still in the shock of losing our father, all this began to take a toll on my health. And my mother isn't the easiest person to deal with. And I have a sister in the US. My family turned on me, and my family had always pegged me as a scapegoat in my family. My father was my protector. He always stood up for me, no matter what. So I felt like my protector, my bodyguard, my father, in the true sense of the word father, was no more. So I'm trying to come to grasp with all of the dynamics that were happening, and everything was shifting so quickly. In the middle of all of that, I had people that I had worked with over the course of my counseling career approaching me saying, I lost my partner, or my mother has passed away, or my father just got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He doesn't have much time to live. And the oddball out of all this was estrangement. I've had 2 people come to me and tell me that they're now estranged from their adult children. And they've got a whole level of grief associated with that. So it's been quite interesting. And I found my healing through helping other people. And I started doing it informally. I am a former social worker, and that just comes to me naturally. I want to help people. I started just helping people. I was there for them, just to listen to them. I helped them balance their emotions. I helped them sort through the thoughts that they were going through. And it's been personally very fulfilling and rewarding. And I've been finding that the more I help people, the more it helps me move on with my recovery and what I need to do in life. I realized that I had to go through all these losses to really get a renewed sense of purpose in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up taking a little bit of a time out over the winter. I went to Mexico for a couple of months just because my health wasn't that good and emotionally I wasn't doing too well. But I was helping people remotely. And then I had the idea of creating the Seniors Grief Circle, which I did. So I got this website created. It's going to be a membership based platform. I'm going to offer a podcast that offers real talk that soothes the soul to help people deal with all the practical fallout that happens when you lose a loved one. I remember one story from a friend of mine, and she shared with me when she lost her husband a couple months ago that her husband, for example, he had separate passwords for everything, like we all do for our bank accounts. Anything, even just to get into your laptop, we all have passwords. And she said to me, I can't find Steve's passwords for anything. I said, what do you mean? Because with my husband, we have a system where we've got a master password list. We share everything. We can get into all our joint bank accounts, our insurance accounts, everything. We share our passwords. And I said, what do you mean? You've been married 40 years. You don't know your husband's
Yep.
passwords. And she said, no, because Steve did facial recognition
Right.
for
Figure it out. Right.
everything. And now he's gone. And so that story, it just kind of hit me. And then she said to me, I had an idea at 2 in the morning. I'm going to take a photo of him and put that in front of the
Hmm.
phone to see if it takes it as the password. So I've been hearing stories like this from so many people about a lot of the
Yeah.
practical matters that we don't even have a clue of that are going to hit us when that loved one passes on. Last night, I got a call from another friend of mine, an elderly lady that I used to work with, and she said, I'm going to another funeral tomorrow, Karen. This is at 11 o'clock last night. And she said, I'm sorry to bother you, but this is a Sikh funeral. I don't know what to wear and I don't know what to expect. And so I got talking to her and she said, I've been Googling everywhere. I don't know what's customary. And she said, you're from India. I thought I would ask you. So I gave her some advice. As I'm having these conversations, Tom, with people, I'm realizing there's so much practicality around grief and there's no handbook. Not that I'm going to create a handbook, but there are plenty of little guides that I can create to help people. And as she said to me, I didn't know who to ask, and I'm sorry for bothering you at 11. I said, hey, I'm happy to help, which is what I do. But there's so much out there that I hope to offer through the Seniors Grief Circle. I want to be able to offer an online platform for a very low membership fee that anyone can go in and pick up a guide that they might find useful. And in addition to that, I do want to offer grief coaching services, which I am offering now, just to help people, not so much from a therapy or a counseling standpoint, which I am going to offer as well, but from more of a practicality standpoint. And to start having those conversations through a podcast on, hey, you know what? My husband passed away 3 weeks ago. I went into the bank. This is the resistance I'm getting. How do I navigate this? So I'm hoping to build a little bit of a team of people that can help. And because this is the most challenging time of your life. Yeah, so I'm hoping that my podcast will help us have these conversations about all the practical things that ensue when you lose a loved one. How do you go about closing off the bank accounts, the credit cards? What do you do with the death certificate? What's it needed for? What about the utilities? How do you deal with the will and the estate? There are so many issues on that topic alone. There's probate, there's sibling conflict, there's all kinds of stuff. What if your loved one didn't have a will? What are you gonna do? And I'm finding through the people I've been helping, they're just looking online, hoping they get the right answer. Emotionally, they're a mess. You're not in the right frame of mind. A grief coach can help you, number one, step out of your emotions and give you a clear path with timelines as to what needs to be done and what priority, and offer you some gentle help. So that's what I'm hoping to offer. I'm also looking right now for grief coaches that can help me. Not necessarily somebody that's got a psychology background or a social work background, but people that know from lived experience how to navigate these things. And they can serve as those beacons of light for people that are going through such a dark time right now. There are upteen issues that surface when you have the loss of a loved one. You lose many other things when that loved one passes away. You could lose your health. You can lose your relationships. You can lose your life as you've known it. And that's the biggest one. So that's what I'm hoping to offer. Through my story of so many losses, I'm finally emerging on the other side stronger, in a position to help others that are dealing with far bigger problems than me. And what gets me out of bed every morning, Tom, is my father. Anytime I would face adversity in my life and I would go to him and I'd say, Dad, this is going on. And he would never tell me what to do. He would sit there pensively and he would say to me, Okay, Karen, you've got this going on. What are you going to do about it? And he would always shift it back on me.
Great
And
advice.
I'd say, I don't know, Dad. And then he would say to me, Well, if you don't know, who's going to know? What do you think you need to do? And so he would help talk me through this. And in the manner that he did that, I wake up every morning doing that to myself now. So it's almost as though he's living through me and he's powering me to do what I need to do. I hear his voice in the morning. I go for a walk. I know he's with me. When I see a cardinal that morning, I know he's with me. And he talks to me that way. And he used to say to me, You think you've got it rough? And he would say to me, There is somebody out there whose pain is 10 times greater than yours. 10 times greater. You have absolutely nothing to complain about. He would always say that to me, no matter whatever I was dealing with. He was 100% correct. I didn't realize it at the time. And sometimes it takes someone to pass away for you to realize how wise and how profound they really were. And it's those words that stick with me every day that are just propelling me forward.
Well, I think it's working, Karen. That's for sure.
I think it is.
First of all, I just want to say I'm so sorry for all you've experienced. That is tragic for sure. You're inspiring alone in that, just that you've walked through that. I like how you talked about how you don't have to be a professional to be able to help someone in this. Life experience sometimes is the best
Yeah,
experience that you can have in helping someone in grief or helping through loss. And I love all the things that you shared in there too. I think that it's that you can so many people are going to be able to identify through so many of the things that you said and the different types of clients that come to you and all of that. And that is, I love that part of the podcast here that we bring that out for the masses out there. Really, I did a little blurb today or this week where I was talking about the podcast and I said it's based on grief, but it transcends to the masses because of inspiration.
yeah.
And I was going to start
Hmm.
implying to people, say, what's the inspiration? And you don't have to do that. Not the way you told everything, that's for sure. And it's great to hear all those different things. So the inspiration is right there. Sure. You did have you've got formal training, like you said, and then it's kind of
Yeah.
transformed and morphed through the experiences to become what it is now. You focused it on the grief experience or loss experience, put it into
Hmm.
practical application. And you're so right. People will search. I did this. I searched the internet and looked for things, and you're just going through the motions really in the beginning of your grief,
Yeah.
and you're reading it,
Hmm.
you're it's coming in, but you don't know if it's penetrating at that point. So I think that's great. You talk about this person coming along too and helping people through this, kind of being an intermediary, and it's almost like having a
Yeah.
midwife, having a doula, having, all these different things. It
Hmm.
works for the grieving person too. And it doesn't seem like there's that help out there like that. And I love that part of it too. I keep saying love, love, love. This is,
That's exactly it.
but it's
And it's
perfect.
it's it's really the type of service I'm trying to create that I wish I had. I really wish I'd had that. Somebody to sort of walk with me, somebody that I could tap on the shoulder and say, This is what I'm going through. Or someone to tap me on the shoulder to say, Karen, you're not looking after yourself. You need to do this or try doing this. Here's how I can help you.
Yeah.
That's what I was really hoping for. And like so many people who are grieving, you don't sleep. You're up. You're up at 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning, because grief will hit you middle of the night, smack in your face, and it's hard. And I would just cry. And I had a couple of things from my father, like one of his favorite baseball caps, which I grabbed the minute he passed away and I got to my parents' house. I grabbed that baseball cap and I had it next to my pillow for a month. And in the middle of the night, I would just clutch it like a little kid because I was so lost. And I really didn't have anyone or anywhere to go at 3 in the morning. So I started thinking if there's a little bit of an online forum or a community where I could just look and say, oh my God, this is what I'm feeling right now. Maybe listen to something. Maybe it's a webinar. Maybe it's a podcast. So I started thinking about building a private Facebook group just to get people in there and share these kinds of resources. You just don't know when grief will hit you. And I had another moment and a few weeks after he passed away where I had a panic attack. I was driving out in the country on a little windy road and the radio was playing and a song came on from my childhood that I absolutely hated, but my father loved it. And every time I would tell my dad to change the radio station, he would say, nah, Karen, this is a great song. After this one, after this one. So I heard that song, Tom, and I had a panic attack. I had to pull over. I couldn't breathe. All the windows were down. I got out of the car, kind of flopped myself on the hood, trying to catch my breath. And my heart was like out of my chest. Just that song triggered me. So if I had a place where I could share that experience, that this is what happened, has this happened to other people? How do you cope with something like that? That would have gone a long way. It really would have. That's the kind of community I want to create where people can just pop those questions in that this happened to me or I'm struggling with this. I can't get out of bed, whatever it might be. And what are other people doing to get over that? And quite frankly, a grief counselor or a therapist, I went through at least 3 of them. And coming from a family counseling background, there is value. I'm not saying there isn't, but the value is in that limited session. It's exactly in that limited session. Grief consumes you 24/7. So I think what I'm really looking to create is a wraparound type of a service where people feel that they're being nurtured and supported and held in a safe space. And that's my goal.
The emotional level is something you can't harness. You can't, you talked about that overflowing and it just hits you. And same thing happened with me recently. And most of the days I'm doing pretty good. I'm about 15, 16 months out from my son dying. And most days I'm pretty good. And something, I can't remember what triggered it recently. The flow is just there, and it just comes and it's there. You can't put your finger on that.
Hmm.
So, and that's all right. It's okay. I actually
Yep.
feel good when it happens. Actually, it's almost like you're in touch again. I don't like to think that I'm too cold to not be
Hmm.
there. I guess,
Yeah.
which I love the growth and things like that, and then how you're doing okay for a while, but I like to feel it too, and like to know it's there. So
Absolutely, absolutely, but it just, when it hits you and the emotions and the intensity of me being 12 years old in the back seat telling my dad to change the station and him chuckling at me, it was a beautiful moment, but it was also traumatic in a weird way.
amazing stuff, Karen. I'm blown away, and it's so deep. There's a lot in there, and it's going to be great for people. And yeah, I'm excited about that idea. I think that that 24/7 thing it's got a lot of potential, and that would be such a great resource for people. Just pull up your phone. Hey, I'm out here in the middle of nowhere, and I'm having a bad time. And just share with them, and even if they're just there to listen, because you just got to get it out. You're by yourself and you're talking maybe to your dad and stuff at all times. But I mean, you just got to have a human there and say, your grief needs to be witnessed. And so it's important. It's important. It kind of, I think it qualifies it for you in some way, whatever, it's just part of our humanness.
I think it's absolutely essential to feel it because it gives your work even more purpose.
So, anyways, all the things you got going on, Karen, your site is great. There's a lot of resources there. By the way, I already have your 2 books up on the shop for or the podcast. If you want to, whatever you want to talk about first, let's get all through all the things that you are doing and you have available for people.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that the seniorsgriefcircle.com will be launched in September. So I'm telling people right now to get priority access. I'm going to be giving away some memberships for free. Get on our mailing list, go to the website, get on our mailing list, or you can also join our private Facebook group. I'll be posting a lot of stuff in there, a lot of free resources.
Mhm.
One free guide that I have right now it's called Making Peace with Grief. And peace is actually an acronym, with P standing for taking a pause, and emotional release, acceptance, caring for yourself, and embracing change. So it's a 5-step grief recovery program that I've put together with the help of a couple of psychotherapists. And I'm giving away a free guide right now for anyone that's looking for how do you get started. I've been wallowing in my grief for a while. I want to get moving. I want to get on with my life. How do you start? That's a free little guide right now that's available to anyone. And you can follow me on Instagram. You can get me on Facebook and LinkedIn, which is where we connected. And LinkedIn has been amazing. I'm seeing people that are following me, not saying too much right now because grief isn't easy to talk about. So I'm hoping to build that trust level with people. That's what I'm hoping to do over the next few months before we officially launch. And our first podcast episode will be out soon, and I'll be sharing that on social media.
Fantastic. Good stuff. And you have two books out already, too.
They're two little ebooks. One of them is for people that have lost a partner. What do you do next when they're in that initial shock? To help them take a pause at that point. You may not grasp the reality of your situation, but it gives you a few pointers of where to start. The second book is what do you do in the first 30 days of losing somebody in your life, whether it's your parent or a partner or a sibling? What do you do? And both of these books are geared towards people in their 40s, 50s, or 60s. So people at midlife with all kinds of responsibilities for your kids, responsibilities for others, you're working. So the 30-day guide is a practical, no nonsense guide that walks you through what needs your immediate attention with a timeline associated. So I'm all about giving people practical stuff that they can use in the moment because there isn't a lot of stuff out there. You're Googling stuff, and that's just not cutting it for
Hmm.
people.
Yep. And I did see about the podcast. That's great. Congratulations. Now, is the little book of grounding, is that one of the resources you have?
So prior to me dealing with all these losses in my life, I was retraining as a functional medicine certified health coach. I've also trained in Ayurveda, and I'm an internationally recognized grounding expert. So I help people with grounding their energy, grounding their mind. And I believe everything starts with the mind. Everything starts and ends with the mind. So I help people step into a place of calm and I show people practical ways to do that. So the little book of grounding does exactly that. It gives you 75 practical ways that anyone can ground themselves every day. And little did I know when I wrote that book that it would be even more applicable
Hmm. Yeah.
now after me having gone through all these losses in my family. And I'm finding that I'm tying the two very nicely together. That if you're grieving, you need to ground
Yeah.
yourself. It's the number one thing you need to do so you can think clearly in terms of what you need to do now. And it's a fabulous little book. It's gotten international acclamations, and I'm really, really grateful for that. And I haven't even been marketing that book
Hmm.
a lot. So it's been kind of interesting how people are just sort of finding it organically. It's an easy little read and simple things. And the number one thing that you can do to ground yourself is to get outside. And I tell people who are at home just mopey and depressed, and okay, your reality kind of sucks right now, but go outside just a little bit in the sunshine, even if the sun isn't shining, it does so
Yeah.
much. It does so much for your
Yeah. I
brain.
found my grounding comes through. I started really looking into meditation after Jeff passed and
Yeah.
mindfulness, which pretty simply is
Hmm.
being in the moment. So I use a little mantra that I've made up as far as the positive aspects that I believe I should be exemplifying or having at that moment in my life, and just coming into that moment and focusing on what's happening right then. And it does dismiss all those negative things around you and all the things that might be on your mind. I think that's a great guide. I'm looking forward to looking at that and seeing some of those practical applications because they all take you to the same place, I think.
They do. And there's a little bit in the intro of that book. And as you're talking, Tom, it just reminded me of what I had written in there 4 years ago. We're all connected to nature. We come from nature. We return to nature. That is the cycle of life and death. And I had written about that before all of this had happened in my life. And it's so true. When you pass away, you go back to nature in every culture, in every religion, every faith. You start that way, you end that way. So the logical way to get through grief is through grounding and connecting to nature.
Hmm.
And once people realize that, it really softens your grief journey.
Yeah,
It
the
just
more and more
does.
I've looked into some of those things I've mentioned before, I used to be a pastor, a Christian pastor for 15 years. And so, but my view is
Hmm.
always wider than even in the church. So it
Yeah.
has expanded since then. And I don't hold to those dogmas anymore or anything. But the spiritual aspect is all connected. And I believe I see so much, and you talk about your past, what other people are doing, how it's all connected. And I can see parallels in all of it, a lot of it, I should say. I think that's the truth. And then there's an enlightening happening right now in people to realize that because we're all realizing the same thing and it's coming up that way. So it's
Yeah.
awesome. That's very exciting. One more book you had, and this probably was prior as well, before you got started with all this, was Get Financially Grounded with Gold and Silver. What about that?
Everything comes back to nature. Gold and silver are precious metals that come from the earth, Mother Nature. So, in a previous life, I used to be a junior economist with the provincial government. I've got a training in economics and business, in global policy before I found my path in social work. So I did that before. And then looking at the way the world is changing, looking at how the financial systems are changing, looking at all the volatility in the markets right now, push to commodities, what's happening with the banking system. I have a little chat group and where people found me during COVID and people that were a little concerned about their finances. We've seen some bank closures in the US. The Canadian banking system is supposedly a little bit on stronger footing. But people started gravitating towards me to me for that kind of help as well because through social media I was just posting my thoughts. And so what I realized was there were a lot of women at midlife that were waking up to their financial reality. And they didn't like what they had that what they were seeing. Jobs were disappearing overnight. So many people were being let go over vaccine mandates or just economic circumstances where businesses were no longer making a profit and they had to let go people. So I'm looking at women that were coming to me. Can you help me look at other investments? Now, I'm originally from India. We place a high value on gold as security. So not to say that I got a whole lot of gold, but it's the value system that I've grown up with. That gold is security. Silver is there for emergencies. Always have something on you. So I started talking about this and I realized, hey, I'm in good company. A lot of people are talking about this. I hammered out a little book just to give people some guidance. People started asking me about crypto and Bitcoin and all that. Did a little bit of that. I dabbled in it and I have some rudimentary knowledge of crypto. But gold and silver are the real deal. They're expected to increase in value just because of what we're seeing with interest rates, with the election coming up in the US. People are looking for stability right now. And gold and silver have been tested through centuries as a store of value and also with silver as a way to exchange. as a way to transact. So now that I see, hey, that's kind of what I was into and I wasn't wrong. I do think silver is headed over $50 right now. Gold, I've heard some projections it could be as much as $3,000 an ounce by the election. So I love dabbling into geopolitical issues, economic issues. That's the heart of my basic training before I got into social work. So I'm a little bit of a mixed bag on everything, but it was a fun little write up for me to do. A fun little book. It's full circle. And so I have a little chat group going with about 50 women. People come and go out of it. Can you give me some advice on this? Can you give me some advice on this? Or they'll send me an article. Oh, is the housing market really tanking? And I'll give my 2 cents. And it's to the point where sometimes I annoy my family with, I'm obsessed with what's going on in the economy, the political environment. And that way I've gone after my dad. I'm a nerd.
Yeah, perhaps we could meet someday and get together and have a coffee together. I'm a big Tim Hortons fan.
Absolutely. I was just going to suggest that. I'm only 45 minutes away and I would love to meet you for a coffee.
Me too. Thank you. And it's great to get to know you. We'll get together again soon. Thank you so much, Karen Sibal. And look up KarenSibal.com. It's Karen Sibal is how Sibal is spelled. So it's KarenSibal.com. And Karen, thank you. And we will connect again soon. Okay.
I would love that. I would love that. And thank you so much for this opportunity. I really enjoyed our conversation. And the website for Seniors Grief Circle, seniorsgriefcircle.com.
Excellent. Thank you. We'll get those both out there in the show notes, like I said. Karen, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes in Grief podcast. If you'd like access to any of the links that we discussed in today's show, you can find them in the show notes. There's also a link there to support the podcast if you care to. And there is an email link for me there. I'd love to hear from you and your ideas about the show or what you thought about the show. You really can help out this podcast to get to more people if you subscribe, rate, or review it in whichever way your platform provides. Each week, Heroes in Grief is released on Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Time, so look for new episodes there. Thank you again for listening to Heroes in Grief.